This week we're joined by Alice as we go back down the Disney animated movie rabbit hole. What did we find out? Well, find out on today's episode of that song from that movie. Who loves you?
Jesus?
It's taking me too long to answer that question.
The answer is you do. Thank you for joining that song from that movie, the journey through the very best and worst of movie songs. I am your host, Tweedle Dietrich, and it's an honour to have him here on the podcast today. For you see, today is his unbirthday, Alex.
Yeah, it is, yeah. Very fortunate because my actual birthday is every other day.
You like the Queen, but like times 150?
Yeah.
No, 75. Because times 150 would get you more towards 300.
Sure.
And he took the red pill to see just how far the rabbit hole goes. Ben.
It was a lozenge.
The pills are metaphorical.
What did I eat then?
What have you been watching this week?
Not much. Just TV, unfortunately. Vigil, which is going to be really out of date by the time this episode comes out because it finished like 3 weeks ago.
Was it H again?
It was, yeah.
Knew it.
Which is weird because there is no H in Vigil, but they still somehow managed to work it.
But there is an I.
Ooh.
What?
I don't know. You said it.
Never heard of it.
I think it's probably called HMS. I think it's called HMS Vigil, though, so I guess there is a H there.
Yeah, there you go.
But I have also been watching the TV show Squid Game vicariously through memes.
I've not watched it.
I've just seen
yet.
I've been very tempted.
Yeah.
One day I'll get around to it soon.
Yeah. Just enjoy the memes. That's what I've been embracing.
No, but I've been avoiding the memes because I actually think this thing might be quite good and interesting.
I can't tell. It's one of those things where I don't know if everyone's just posting about the Bird Box.
The reviews are really good.
Right.
It does look like a knockoff version of The Condemned, let's be honest.
I like that, D. I
haven't seen that review on The Guardian.
I like the option you went for there. Not the Hunger Games, not Battle Royale. The best version of that type of story, The Condemned, with Stone Cold Steve Austin and Vinnie Jones.
It's true.
I love that for you, D.
It's true.
I love that.
What about you, Ben? What have you watched?
I watched The Last Black Man in San Francisco. That was a very good film. Me and my wife were watching TV-wise that Midnight Mass.
Yes,
What,
heard of things.
Like the Christmas thing?
No, no, the one by the guy who did the Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah, is it good? Is it worth watching?
I think it was slow to start. I'm very much into it with one episode to go.
Okay.
So yes, I am enjoying it. Dee, what about you?
Well, other than PUBG, of course.
Of course.
Is it still going? It's like
Never.
It's like 5 years old.
But anyway, we've watched the very first, because I mentioned before on the podcast, we'd started watching the anime My Hero Academia.
Yeah, I have also watched this.
Yeah, we watched the first movie. Not My Hero Academia, the first movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back. But the first movie.
I have not watched the movie versions. I've just watched the show. Are they good?
The first movie's good. We've not got the second one yet. We're trying to race through it all so we can watch the third movie, which comes out in cinemas. Probably when this episode comes out.
You can share that cinema with the stereotypes of people that go see anime at the cinema. Me.
You, yeah.
Definitely me.
I don't know what you're talking about. So
it's like a very popular anime. It's kind of like a superpower high school sort of thing.
Oh, of course, obviously. I kind of got already convinced. In my head, it's kind of like they're all dressed like Sailor Moon.
Yep, every anime, Sailor Moon.
And I am when I go to the cinema. That's not even for that film. Can't wait to see James Bond in it.
Yeah. Have you? I expected that either of you two would have seen James Bond already, but no.
No, I've not had a chance to go see it yet. I've had no time to cinema.
It's very long, apparently.
What is it?
3 hours, yeah.
I hear it's very good.
I've seen some decent reviews out there.
Well, I'll probably have seen it by next week's episode.
Really, we should have done Casino Royale and
we should have, shouldn't we?
Skyfall and Spectre.
We've been saying we're going to do it for
so long. We waited so long.
We didn't actually do it.
Do it for the DVD release.
Good shout.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is only 6 weeks away.
Yeah.
So this week we take another step on our animated Disney marathon. This time we are looking at the songs of Alice in Wonderland. So to find out what was happening in the world when the movie came out.
Time for some history.
yes, it is definitely time for some history. Yeah, thank you, Alex, for the reverb.
You're welcome.
We're going back to July 1951. Harry Truman finally agrees to declare that the US is no longer at war with Germany, which was very confusing to read, because I thought it ended 6 years earlier. What are you doing? But apparently no, they didn't actually sort of end the war until 9 years, 10 months and 13 days after they initially declared war on Nazi Germany. And they were holding out just in case.
They wanted to be the last one to end the war.
I think it was something to do with they wanted to try and get unified Germany before they kind of, yes, let's finally let you go off into the wild. But they have to give up on that experiment.
Do you think at any point you're not going to have a World War II related story when we do these Disney episodes?
Yeah, I mean, basically it's just been going, hasn't it? I can try. I will try.
I'm telling you now, it comes back around in a big way around Frozen time.
Yep, definitely will. In other news of the time, the novel Catcher in the Rye was released, written by J.D. Salinger. Still to this day, it finds itself on almost every top 10 list in the US for most often banned books, according to the National Library Association. I have never read the book. Alex, does that make sense?
That it's been banned.
Well, why is it like continuously is still today in 2021 banned in some places?
Yeah, I mean, that's a little bit surprising if you actually read it. But there's things like prostitution referenced in it and things like that. Essentially, it's like a teenager just going around New York, just like doing adult things. Yeah, I don't know why it's been banned. I mean, I think in our circle, it's most famous for winning us about £150 at a pub quiz once.
It literally was the first thing I thought about when I saw this fact. It's nice to have shared memories, ladies and gentlemen. And in other news, ever more related news, July 1951 saw the release of the Disney classic Alice in Wonderland. So, Alice in Wonderland, as you may well be aware, is an animated fantasy film, fantasy with a capital F, which follows the adventures of the incredibly naive and cavalier Alice, who, while chasing down the White Rabbit, falls down a hole into a magical world in which she encounters an array of weird and wonderful characters. I am assuming, as with all the Disney classics so far, of which this is definitely a classic, that you have seen this film. So what do you guys think?
Personally, I wasn't a huge fan of this movie. Well, I'm still not a huge fan of this movie. It's all right. It's all right. I don't think it particularly lands for me because it doesn't feel like a real, proper, fleshed out movie. It sort of feels more like a collection of skits that are loosely tied together because Alice herself is in the scene. Mm-hmm. I guess that's sort of going back on what we said before, like in the sense of when we did Pinocchio, I think it was, I complained that it felt like 3 episodes of a Pinocchio TV show put together. Well, I mean, it's better than that. It's certainly better than those like god-awful compilation short movies that we skipped over, thankfully. But I suppose similarly, it's not as visually interesting as like Fantasia. Yeah. So it sort of lands in the middle for me in the, like I said before, the all-right category. Just not a huge fan, but not a huge detractor of it either.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think there's some good points from D. I think it does feel a bit like little segments stitched together with no real cut-through. I think they tried to fix that, didn't they, with the sort of Tim Burton one. But I still prefer this original cartoon animated version to that weird and strange film version. I kind of don't mind the sort of haphazard nature of this one because it kind of fits more with the sort of like perfectly mad, like weird story of Alice in Wonderland anyway. I think maybe Dietrich could have maybe taken it a bit further with like the kind of psychedelic nature, but I do think there is elements of it in there, definitely like sort of off the back of like Dumbo and things like that. It's probably 90% responsible for all of psychedelic rock of the 1960s.
Yes.
The other 10% being LSD, of course. There are a lot of songs, aren't there? There are a lot of songs in this one. I think you mentioned that there was about 18 until like.
I think there's I think technically there's 14 official songs, right. But there's some that are just like kind of almost like reprises or one-liners.
And I think obviously we'll get into the songs, but for me, I had a very clear visual recollection of this film from my childhood and seeing it not too long, like a few years ago. But there's none of the songs stuck in my head. The only one wasn't even a real song, and that's the I'm late for a very important day. And that's the only one I could actually remember off the top of my head. So
yeah, exactly the same. I'm exactly the same.
Oh, really? I do this with my wife every time. I mean, we'll go on to this soon. But yeah, I could name a few, but she always names more. Sigh. But yeah, I'm kind of the same. I watched it back the other day, and there's something, I don't know if it's being an adult, but there's something I always find quite jarring. And I can take all the fantastical stuff down the line, but it's the connection of what happens to get there when it's just like, oh, there's a rabbit talking, let's go into this place, and everything is really normal until at the end she's like, you know what, I might not get out of here. And then there's like, kind of like a slightly somber moment. But other than that, she's just like, oh wow, yeah, all these weird things are happening.
Takes all in a stride.
Yeah, incredibly, like almost too, like when she's falling down the rabbit hole, she's like, well, this is a bit of a sort of a slight bother. But other than that, yeah, the characters, there's so many famous characters in here, and I know it's hard to sort of compliment a film, I guess, if the characters are from the source material, but I associate them with this film and my childhood connection to this film. Cheshire Cat, Mad Hatter, Marge Hare, the I forget what the caterpillar's called, but talking a bifter. There's a lot of great moments. Queen of Hearts. It's very, very visually iconic.
Yeah, definitely.
Are we both aware of the origins? Alex, I'm leaning towards you being the only well-read individual of this trio.
The origins of the story itself.
Yes.
Well, obviously it's Lewis Carroll. I think Alice was like his. She was a real person, but I can't remember the actual relation. I can't remember whether she was his niece or whether she was like the daughter of like a friend or something, and she used to be around at his house, and he wrote the story for her. I can't remember the full details.
You're more or less right. We'll go into it soon. Yeah, I'm the relation. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but yes, he regaled these stories while they were often on a boat. It was these three sisters, of which Alice was one of them. And yeah, he made these stories personally for her. I think she encouraged him to publish them, and he did, and yes, here we are. So the original story is known as Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, which was written in 1865 by Lewis Carroll, as Alex said. And he described his protagonist, Alice, as wildly curious, which I would definitely go with. And yeah, there's a lot of sort of modern critics, especially recently, like kind of praise the development of this sort of female character. And I was thinking, compared to sort of the female protagonist we've had so far, Cinderella, Snow White, she's a lot more assertive. She's a lot more articulate, while still possessing like a lot of sort of virtues, innocence, politeness that you get with those two characters. But she's a lot more confident.
She definitely drives the story, doesn't she?
Yeah.
I guess much more than everyone.
Definitely, yes, yeah. She don't take no shit. She definitely don't take no shit, which sometimes gets her into bother. There's quite a lot of sort of positive praise, I guess, of her as a protagonist, which was quite interesting to read. And Alex, you leaned on it slightly there. There's a lot of, it's kind of like those sort of cult like hypotheses around the film of the psychedelics, the drug induced, that it's all sort of like, Alice is just on shrooms. Like she just huffed a plant, and and this is her kind of rubbing her face into a local rabbit, which some people take really seriously, and other people just do it as a slight mockery. But I was reading, there was a lot of psychoanalysts in the 30s and 40s, so like early psychologists, Freudian sort of style. And if you don't know anything about Freudians, the one thing to know is that everything was related to sex and childhood, and that everything could be interpreted in that way. And a lot of Freudians criticised Lewis Carroll because they believed Alice's personality was simply a reflection of the author's own desires, in which one very famous psychoanalyst described Lewis Carroll as a repressed sexual deviant. And that, there's a lot of sexual imagery in the film and things like this. I mean, you can find sexual imagery in anything if you try hard enough. And often psychoanalysts did try fairly hard.
Any psychoanalysts out there, if you want to analyse this podcast to see where the sexual tension is, let us know. I'd be very intrigued.
I would say this is a very sexless podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, Lewis Carroll is a bit of a problematic character, though. I won't bore the listeners, but there's a lot of stuff out there. Like all I'll say is I'm getting the word, and you guys might know what I'm referencing there. But there is a lot of reports and stories about that. So I won't go into more detail, but so there is a lot of weight behind those theories.
That upsets me because I hate psychoanalysts, sort of, especially of this time. There's a famous story by very famous psychologist, I think it's Michael Eysenck, his surname's Eysenck. Anyway, he went to a conference when he was quite young, and it was filled with a room of psychoanalysts, and someone on stage was referring to the reason behind the miner's Christ was related to the male fear of going inside the Mother Earth's vagina. And he said he wanted to laugh, and he looked around the room at all these sort of wise men, like nodding their head, like, yes, yes, yes. And it was like, that's when he knew psychology was dying. So I would prefer to leave them in the dirt. But anyway, moving on. The film at the time was considered a bit of a box office failure. On a budget of around $3 million, it made just under $2.5 million at the box office, which is quite poor, because they'd just done quite well with Cinderella. You would have hoped that this would have kind of launched them into further future successes. It did have a re-release in the 70s, and it made another $3.5 million, so I guess you could argue in the cheating ways of James Cameron that counts. But it's kind of considered the first sort of cult success of Disney. It's considered a classic now. It had a good TV run, a good VHS run later in the sort of 80s and 90s. I think Walt Disney played it, one of the first films on his TV show, which was called Disneyland at the time, and it did really well through sort of television views. And I guess it made its success that way, so in a less natural way, which is quite interesting, really. I don't know if I've ever considered it a cult classic, but people on the internet do, and who am I to argue with them?
Don't do it, yeah, definitely don't do that. Never argue.
Definitely don't do it.
Never
I'm talking to you,
argue
internet.
with the internet.
Talking to you. There are a lot of songs in Alice in Wonderland. A lot of songs. In fact, the most number of songs in any Disney film.
Ever? Or up to this point? Ever?
Ever, yes, ever. There is no Disney film that has more than 14 official songs. And off that, and this will be a slight disclaimer, we will not be covering 14 songs in detail because some of them are so small and so boring and so insignificant that I will be wasting my breath and your capacity to listen to my musings by trying to spin a yarn. So we're going to focus on a few select standout ones, and I'm going to ask Alex and Dietrich to be pulled along with me through that, if you two will be so kind.
Go on then.
Sounds so enthusiastic.
Feel free to refer to the podcast from here on as some songs from some parts of the movie.
Yeah, just as catchy. Originally, when they were looking at making the soundtrack, Walt Disney wanted to capture some of the poems in the book. Again, I'm not familiar with the source material, but apparently there are a lot of poems. He brought on the great Frank Churchill, originally in 1939, so 12 years before the film came out, to write the songs for this film. Frank Churchill we've spoken about already on this podcast in relation to previous Disney films. And if you may remember, he did not have best of luck with Walt Disney. They had a lot of arguments. He committed suicide in, I think, the early 1940s. And none of his songs were chosen for this film. Walt Disney clearly didn't like any. I think a few of them were sort of pulled apart and some parts were taken. But the film was supposed to come out in the 40s, and they just kept pushing it back. So he then went, Walt Disney, to Tin Pan Alley, which we've also covered. Tin Pan Alley was a place in New York where a lot of staff writers, musicians, composers worked. So it's just a street in New York. They wrote a lot of the songs for Cinderella, and I think in future Disney films that we'll come on to, they covered a lot on there. And again, they wrote, I think, a few dozen songs. And Walt Disney wasn't a fan of any of them either. It sounds like he's a man who's hard to please.
Yes.
Shock horror. Although there was one song that he did like, and one song that made it into the film. And to me, spoiler, probably the best song, which is the Unbirthday song. So we've gone from Frank Churchill to 0, Tin Pan Alley to 1. Where do the other 13 come from? They come from a composer named Sammy Fain, which I think is a very, very cool name, and lyricist Bob Hillard, not as cool, sorry Bob, to do the rest of the songs from the film. Sammy Fain was or at least is now, a 9 times nominated individual for Best Original Song at the Oscars. He had won twice for Calamity Jane, which is a pretty decent film, and a film I have never even heard of called Love is a Many Splendid Thing, which I'm judging by the name is probably from around the 40s. Doesn't sound like the kind of film that would get made today.
Oh, it's a horrifying name for a film.
It is. Love is a Many Splendid Thing. And yeah, he will, again, also come up in other Disney films in this series. But you've kind of alluded to it. Could you really only name the sort of song, in inverted commas, from The White Rabbit from this film?
Yeah. I'd actually go as far as to say that
Terrible.
when I listened to the songs, there was only one other that I recognised, and that was the Unbirthday song. Every other one, I was like, don't recognise any of these.
I am literally the same.
Especially the the guess, which kind of like is almost the lead song, which we'll cover soon. Not the actual title track, but the one that the first song that Alice sings. I had no recollection of that at all.
The Westlife song.
Westlife song?
We got a little world of our own.
All right. I thought Westlife had actually covered one of these songs, did. And I was about to scramble to YouTube. I'm in agreement with you. I could name a few more, mostly from Disney sing-along VHS tapes I had as a kid. But you can tell how there isn't really a standout famous song, because when you Google Alice in Wonderland songs, all I got to come up was Avril Lavigne.
Yeah, and I didn't even know what that was from.
No.
I assumed it was from the new one. Is it not from the new one?
But what's the new one? As in the Tim Burton ones. But there's two, isn't there? So I don't know which one it was from.
I didn't even grace it with a listen.
No, I didn't either. I'm not putting my ears towards that.
Good. No. One thing that I would like to mention, which is a slight personal tale, when I was at school. Now I subscribe now to the greatest gift from the heavens, the playlist Lo-Fi Hip Hop Beats to Study and Relax to. Familiar?
Yep.
Yeah. Alex, are you familiar?
No, I am not.
Are you not familiar with the anime girl that's in a perpetual state of studying for the past sort of 10 years?
Yeah, it's every single YouTube recommendation, is it?
Are you unaware of this?
Yeah, I am unaware of this.
Do you not use the internet?
Do you not? Yeah, I was about to say, are you aware of lo-fi music, Alex?
Not really. It's not really a concept of
so out of touch.
I am
so out of touch with his J.D. Salingers and his Lewis Carrolls.
And his books.
and his books and his words. It's kind of like a very almost dreamlike sort of soft R&B element. I don't know how you describe it, D.
I would describe it as lo-fi hip-hop beats to study to.
Okay, there you go. Google it after this, Alex,
and
you'll never feel more settled. But my point is, my first introduction to sort of lo-fi dreamscape music was a YouTuber called Pogo who did remixes of Alice in Wonderland. And I think a lot of sort of dreamy lo-fi music, it fits quite well with that sort of escapism. It's kind of this losing yourself in a headspace. Go listen to Pogo's music after this. Oh, perfect. And that's the last I'll mention that before I get into the actual songs that you guys are here for. While Alex leaves us to go and look. Oh, lo-fi.
Lo-fi R&B.
Lo-fi hip-hop beats to study / relax to.
Not to sleep / chill to.
I mean, you can do also that as well, but it's a girl, it's a little anime girl in a bedroom studying.
With a window in the background.
Yeah, maybe, and a cat.
Looking out to the world.
Oh, okay, yeah, she's got headphones on with a red and green sweater.
That's the one. Just, honestly, that's the greatest playlist ever.
They both say live on them at the moment.
Yeah, because they're live.
Oh,
they're always running.
They're still going.
They're always running.
Oh,
it's not like an actual playlist.
They never stop.
Yeah.
Oh, there's 36,000 people watching it right now.
I'm one of them. It gets me through this podcast.
Okay, well, I'll give it a listen after this, and I'll report back.
The first song of the film is so titled Alice in Wonderland. It is the title card song, of which we are used to with the Disney films so far. They always seem to have a title card song. In this case, it's performed by the Judd Conlon Chorus and the Mellow Men. Very cool name. What do we think of this one? It's, like I say, it's a fairly common place to start with the Disney animated features we've gone through.
Yeah, allow me to get up my notes from the song entitled Cinderella from the movie Cinderella. I've nailed my colours to the mast for this podcast when it comes to opening credits, so I think I appreciate this opening for what it is, even if at this stage we have covered 5 or 6 and they're all the same. End.
I'm surprised you saved your notes.
I know.
They just go in a notepad.
I watched the film 2 days ago. I listened to the song a few times. It's disappeared mostly from my head. Something about over and underland. Which I think is a clever line, and that's about it.
Yeah, yeah, I've got literally nothing else to add. The only thing I'll say is that there is on CBeebies, which I watch more than anything else nowadays, they do pantos every year, and there is an Alice in Wonderland one, and the theme from that is more stuck in my head right now than the actual theme for this Disney film.
Can you give us a
Go on.
2-step?
He just goes, Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, I'm sold. I'm sold. Yeah, sounds better.
Yeah.
I mean, there are more lyrics to it, but that part just lives rent free, as Dean said many times on this podcast.
Yes, no, definitely. Yeah, I'm the same. It's very meh, which is most of the songs in this. Oh, I've got cramp. Oh, God.
We're keeping this in.
This is definitely staying.
Okay. What was I saying?
I believe what you said was, I've got cramp. Oh. Something like that.
Did we notice that the intro didn't have a book opening?
Oh, did it not? I've not noticed.
It was just painted stills.
Yes, I did see. Yeah, now that you mention that, yeah.
Big progression.
Or a downgrade.
Yeah, it comes across as cheaper.
And it's funny, isn't it? Because it is literally a book, this one, as well.
I mean, they lean heavily on the source material, I guess. Yeah, so far they've all been sort of, 1800 young adult children's stories. I'm trying to think for the other films I wonder when they stop that. Because we've got Peter Pan to come, Lady and the Tramp.
Yeah. Sword in the Stone.
Sleeping Beauty.
101 Dalmatians is a book.
Is Lady and the Tramp?
Oh, that I don't know.
Anyway, similar to other songs that we've covered in other Disney podcasts, this song is a very famous, apparently, jazz standard.
Should have guessed that.
Which is still one of the most baffling things that I've learned going through these early Disney films. That famous jazz musicians, they love to cover Disney songs. Change the key, but Dave Brubeck, Oscar Peterson, Bill Evans, they've all got albums dedicated to the music of Alice in Wonderland, or put it on sort of their famous albums. A few critics, I was kind of reading jazz critics, say some of their best works, Bill Evans, I think especially, is apparently this song. Yeah, I just find it weird. Even sort of the lyrics, to be sung. I always think, when I think of sort of someone singing jazz, for some reason Louis Armstrong's gruff voice always comes in. I'm not going to do the impression again because I can't do that. But it seems a very weird, sort of successful match. And I guess it's one I'm here for? Question mark?
With an upwards inflection?
Yes, very much so. But yes, this song opens the film. You see Alice being easily distracted from her sister, I think it is. Or it's her mother, can't remember now. Attempting to educate her, but this young free spirit is having none of it. Choosing instead to talk to her cat about her ideal world, one filled with the kind of weird and wonderful anthropomorphic creatures we're soon going to see. And so she starts to sing the song In a World of My Own, which is sung by Catherine Beaumont, who does the voice of Alice. She also does, for a fun fact, the voice of Wendy in the upcoming Peter Pan film. And when I say upcoming, in this podcast, not in real life.
Yeah, I was going to say, by upcoming, I mean it was released 70 years ago, or whatever it was.
Yeah, even in her 80s, she's still, Peter! What do we think of this song? I think this one's incredibly catchy. I've been humming this all day. It's been a shower song for me.
Yeah, I think it's a nice song. Again, it was one that I did not... I mean, I think I mentioned earlier, I just did not recognise it at all. But the parts of this film that I remember are the parts when she goes down the rabbit hole. I don't really remember that, because this is pre that, isn't it? This is she's in the grounds of the house where she lives before she goes down the hole and sees the white rabbit, etc. I think I just don't have any recollection of that part of the film. But when I listened back to it, I thought it was quite a nice song. And it's a buzzword on this podcast. It's a want song.
Yep.
I think it serves its purpose. I think obviously it outlines all of Boys to Come in terms of what she wants to see and the characters. And I think that's obviously an intentional choice by the songwriters to kind of make that all make a bit more sense. It's a little bit like the end of The Wizard of Oz, where she's like, you were there and you were there, but the other way around. It's before.
Yeah. There's something you said there, it serves a purpose. I think that could be used to describe most of the songs for this film. They're not okay, we're building up to that big song. It's going to be sort of the huge song. It's just we need a song to go over the scene. It's this, we kind of have sort of these jaunty tunes, stick a song in. It just doesn't feel like they're setting up for anything, really.
Yeah, well, it's weird because this song feels like it is the setup for the film. And then the rest of it, I completely agree. Just there to serve the purpose. I mean, to serve some other purpose. Yeah. They're just simply there to carry a scene. Yeah. Whereas this one,
all filler, no killer.
Yeah, exactly. It was a nice song. It didn't influence me in any other way. I wasn't singing it in the shower.
It's not inspired you like Mozart to write your next magnum opus.
No, and nor did it inspire me to take psychedelic drugs.
Not anymore, anyway.
Fair.
No.
Fair. I echo most of what Alex is saying there. It's a pleasantly good song. I sort of get a sort of almost jovial feeling of a mother singing to a young child to try and make them laugh. I know it's actually a young girl to a cat, but it sort of has that sort of guardian to younger vibe. A bit Mary Poppins, I suppose. I know she's not a mother. To those children in the film, I should say.
Yeah, no, I get that. I find it very sort of dreamlike, very hazy. I find it just super, quite relaxing. I guess in the film, she's laying in the grass as well, singing it. I find it very, soothing. Once I get over, just like Cinderella, God, the animation of the faces in these films are terrible. Add some shading. They're so amazing at doing backgrounds. What are you doing with these characters? Anyway, fact-wise, originally, Beaumont was supposed to sing another song called Beyond the Laughing Sky, which supposedly had similar themes, but was a much more of a slow, longing ballad, and probably going to be the big song for the film. Now, I've sent you guys a link to a version of this, sort of a staff singing version of this. Yep. Were you able to listen?
Yes.
What do you think of this then, this song, Beyond the Laughing Sky?
Well, first of all, the video you sent was an absolute treat. Where she's like, "Hi, I'm so and so."
Yeah, it was perfect.
So Disney, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh well, let's not talk about it. Oh yeah, I loved it, and she's just in a small cinema. Yeah, everything about it's lovely. I think the song. I think it's interesting because did they say that the song ended up being in Peter Pan?
I guess the same melody is used for the song.
Second, third star, something like that.
Second star on there, right, or something like that. Yeah.
Star and direction.
And she made reference to the fact that the original song was sort of their attempt. This song, the Laughing Sky, was their kind of attempt at Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And she makes a funny joke about the fact that she couldn't sing as well as Judy Garland, which I think is very clear when you hear the song that she does sing. But it's kind of nice in a way because it feels more like musical theatre, like it's more acted rather than sung. It's kind of a step away from things like Snow White, definitely, where it's all very performative, whereas this is kind of, it feels more natural in some ways. The song that I'm getting confused about which song we're talking about, but I'm kind of talking about the song that's in the film. That one, the one that she actually sings, sounds, it works in that way. But the Laughing Sky one, yeah, I thought it was interesting what she said about it being similar to The Wizard of Oz, because all three of those films, The Wizard of Oz, Alice in Wonderland, and Peter Pan, are very similar story-wise. They all end up going to they're all quite naive children who end up finding themselves in a sort of magical land. They're all the same story, essentially. So I thought that was kind of interesting that they were clearly trying to replicate what The Wizard of Oz does well in this film. They didn't succeed. It's nowhere near as good as The Wizard of Oz. I think everyone would agree upon that. But, well, I hope it would, because The Wizard of Oz is just an absolute classic.
But you think the songs are similar?
I don't think the songs are similar in terms of quality.
Yeah. Because obviously we have Somewhere Over the Rainbow, often cited as the greatest movie song of all time.
Exactly. But I can see that they're trying to replicate that, with the original song. But I think she spoke about, didn't she, that they changed it to a more up-tempo song. And, probably an easier key so that she could sing it.
So she could sing.
But I think it still works nicely, but it feels a bit odd because it's kind of like she's talking about all the things that then happen.
Yeah. Thematically, it's maybe too close to Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
That's what I was saying.
And it's a beautiful song, but I think the song they picked does fit the feeling of the film better.
I agree.
Yeah,
definitely.
To put it on a postcard.
Yeah, that should be our motto. I also liked, fun fact again for you guys, something I wasn't aware of, that they often performed a lot of these songs or the scenes in live action and then sort of superimposed it into animation. So Catherine Beaumont, as a sort of young actress, did a lot of these scenes, and the artist sort of drew her into the film. And they did the same for Peter Pan, which I didn't know they did.
No, I didn't. I was really surprised when I saw that as well. But I was like, it kind of makes sense, I guess. But yeah, it was interesting to see her acting the bits out, and then the animation and how similar it was.
So that brings in to part one of our look at the songs from Alice in Wonderland. We didn't get very far through them, I apologise. But we'll be back next week, next Thursday, with another episode. Or if you're listening to this in the future, just go and hit play now. So see you next week, or see you in a few seconds. Bye!
find it very sort of dream-like, like a kind of hazy song. My pacemaker.
My pies are done.